Next item here, I guess, speaking of malware, Jim, this is kind of a cool little twist.
Yeah, I came across this one in Arbor's ACERT blog 10 days ago or so. The Bedep Malware family is a click fraud type malware family that's been around for a year or so. I think maybe it's only 6 months, but anyway, what they reported in Arbor's ACERT blog the other week was an interesting feature in the malware's domain generation algorithm, DGA for short, for generating its command and control domains, who it connects back to. And the interesting part of this one was that what they do is they use a legitimate XML file that is published every day by the European Central Bank that contains the last 90 days of euro foreign exchange rates. You know, how the euro trades against other currencies in the world. So this is a legitimate file. The European Central Bank generates this daily, and this malware, this particular Bedep malware, in its domain generation algorithm, goes and grabs this XML file and uses it to generate the domains it's going to try to use for command and control for this week. And that was just a twist that I hadn't seen before, so I thought it was interesting and wanted to mention it here. You know, that they're going out, pulling a legitimate file off a legitimate website and using the contents of that file as part of their domain generation. You know, one of the things that we did with Conficker and with some of the other malware families that have had their own domain generation algorithms in the past is, you know, we reverse engineered the algorithm and we could generate the domains out for days, weeks, months in advance. And sometimes, you know, some of the good guys would go and register some of those domains in advance so that you could see get some idea of how many infections were out there. I thought it was an interesting twist. I'm not sure what exactly we can do about things like this, but I thought it was an interesting twist.
Well, I think at the very least they could change where they post the file.
So,
yeah, we could try that. That would slow them down for one iteration of the malware, and then update the malware.
They'd have to update the malware, and they have to have the command and control in order to do that. So, they probably have a backup channel that's kind of a little more hidden, but nevertheless, it's anything to disrupt them would be perhaps a
well, maybe
step in
they
the right
should
direction.
Host this file on a fast flux domain or something, like, change the domain, use a DGA to host the file, so everybody who needs it can get it.
But then you've got to do something to host that properly. And
this is a circular problem. It's fundamentally, it exemplifies the arms race here.
Well, it's interesting because on one hand, one of the reasons you set up DGAs is so that no one can predict what sort of network traffic you would be seeing to what domains, except that you know in every case that there's this URL it's always going to be hitting day in and day out.
Right.
So great, the command and control is going over here, but you can detect this thing, unless of course you're using this European XML file in your daily business. Most people won't.
Those are probably whitelistable.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm. If you see this, you've probably got a good idea you've got Bedep, until of course they change the URL.
Right.
Now, putting on my black hat for a second, if I were to find some other file to use for this generation algorithm, I try to find something that the majority of businesses are already going to, but doesn't change quite as often. I mean, it sounds like this only changes once or twice, rather than I keep thinking of things like maybe the MSN homepage would be something that people go to, but that changes too frequently, or some other website, but maybe it changes to not. It's one of those too hot, too cold sort of situations.
Yeah. So again, I think this just sort of exemplifies this arms race thing, that there are always folks that are trying to create what the next step is, and being creative about how they approach their malicious activities and finding one way to stay a step ahead of the folks that are trying to protect.
The other, and what if you could modify that file in such a way that you could influence the DGA? And you need to talk to the person owning the server, of course, at that point. But maybe you can influence the DGA in such a way that you can predict what the values will be for the next week, and then maybe sync all.
That's an interesting thought. So, Jim, do you happen to know what the algorithm is that it uses on that file? Is it a hash?
There is a the folks at Arbor have put out a Python implementation of it. I have not looked at it.
Well, the problem is you'll be affecting markets that actually rely on the stocks.
I assume that they're using the wraparound as well as part of the. That's my assumption, is that they're not necessarily looking at specific numbers, but perhaps taking some of the wraparound and using that. But that's the assumption on my part. So that's good.
Yeah, if I were a bad guy, I would probably actually use the values in it. Then you couldn't get. Then they couldn't change it and manipulate it that way to affect me.
Yeah. I got a feeling we could go down this rabbit hole for hours.
Yeah.